And then I go ahead and finish that out by looking at dominant chords can either resolve deceptively or Teutonic. Okay. But in terms of this idea of pivot chord, um, often what works is you start in your original key as you're moving towards 5 in the new key. If you can find a chord that is from the original key but also exists in the new key, and there are chords in the dominant key for sure that are found in the original tonic key, um, you can set up what's called a pivot chord modulation. Okay, and we do actually see this in the actually in both of these examples. Let's look quickly at the Mozart example. So let's see if so here we are. Here's the C7 chord that creates the modulation to F, right? And the E natural is the accidental, then the leading tone of that 5/7 is what creates that modulation. Notice that right before that 5/7 chord, we start in B flat, we have B flat tonic, but then right here at the end, it's a little hard to see because the cursor's hidden part of the timeline there. But the G that is introduced on this last beat moves, progresses from the tonic chord to a G B flat D chord. Does that make sense? So this is actually B flat D F, one that goes to G B flat D F in first inversion. So 6/6. Well, something to recognize that in the key of F, G B flat D is a 2 chord. Okay, so we enter this pivot chord as a 6 chord in B flat, but we resolve it as a 2 chord in F. Pretty nifty, eh? It's what we call pivot chord modulation. Pivot chord is a chord that belongs to both the key that we're coming from and the key that we're modulating to. And we sort of resolve into that chord with the function of the original key and resolve it with the function of the new key. So when we come into this chord as 1 to 6 in B flat, right? That's just simply a normal tonic expansion progression. But when we get to that G minor chord, we reconceive it in the overall phrase as now a 2 chord in F, and it resolves as a predominant chord very naturally to 5/7, and now we're easily in the key of F. That's why that modulation tends to work so well. If you look at the Bach example, here we are in G. We're in G. We go to a 6 chord, just like we saw before, right? And by the end of that measure, we've introduced the C sharp, and then we're to the A7 chord here. So in G, going to 6, he's actually gotten first inversion as well, just like the Mozart 6/6, or the Mozart actually is just like the Bach, because the Bach came first. 6/6 that then resolves to 5/7 or 5/6/5 because of the inversion in D. Okay. So let me know if any questions around that, how a pivot chord modulation works, any questions about this chart, but then also remembering that the function of the chord within this chart does often give you the right way to think about the part rating. Okay. The assignment that I would like to give, I've made an example here, is to write an 8-bar parallel modulating period with Alberti bass accompaniment. So the idea is just like you wrote your modulating your parallel period previously, this time we're just going to write a parallel period that also modulates in the second phrase. So here I'm in the key of G. I'm starting with a B and scale degree 3, right? Landing on scale degree 2 in the end of the first 4-bar phrase so that I have a nice 5/7 chord and a half cadence here. And then within this phrase, I'm going to modulate because it's a parallel period. The music that I have here at the beginning of the second phrase, right, mirrors the music that I heard here in the first phrase. That's why it makes it a parallel period. But right here at the end, I sort of reworked the melody to introduce the C sharp that modulates us to D. So let me play the melody first, because what I did was I really wrote the melody, and then I went back and added the Alberti bass. So we start here in G. And repeat. Okay, and And that creates the modulation to D. Now, I will tell you, in these short little parallel periods of 8 bars, sometimes it doesn't always sound like we've completely modulated into the new key. Maybe we're just temporarily in D and we're still hearing this as a half cadence in G. Don't worry about that if you're not fully convinced that you've modulated. That's a problem of the small phrase. Mozart wrestles with this. It really depends on the music that comes after this as to whether we confirm that we fully modulated into D. But let's assume with the single C sharp that that is enough to go ahead, and let's assume the music from here stays in D. Okay. Then what I did, thinking 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, right? I just harmonized this with very simple 1, 5, 7, 1, 5, 7 chords, and then used the little Alberti bass pattern, 1, 3, 5, 3, 5, 3, and then using that contour, I can use that Alberti contour in other chords, right? And so this is what it ultimately sounds like. Let me get a position here with the Alberti bass. Okay, and when I introduce that C sharp in this measure, then that's where I use the 5-7 chord now in D to complete the modulation. Okay, so this will sort of take some work, maybe. So I don't mind getting together and answering any questions you have about it. I think sort of wrestling with it and then finding the right answer and learning from any challenges. I won't even say mistakes, but just challenges as you're working through it. I think really does reaffirm everything that we're sort of introducing here. So give this your best shot, and then we'll look at it and have lots to talk about, I'm sure. And then any other questions that come up as you sort of work through everything we covered here, let me know. Okay, thanks.